I want to have our first bill, House File 2169, Representative Richardson. And again, we are not taking action, formal action at all on this bill. We're hearing it on an informational basis. Representative Richardson, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House File 2169 is a bill appropriating $6.2 million in fiscal year 2022 from the general fund for a grant to Reconnect Rondo for project development of the Rondo Land Bridge freeway lid over Interstate 94. The story of Rondo is one of a thriving Black cultural center. It has been described as the heartbeat of the St. Paul's Black community and was home to 85% of St. Paul's Black community in the 1950s. The community was strong, it was thriving, and even in the midst of the brutality of government-sanctioned discrimination, a Black middle class emerged. The story of Rondo is also a story of pain, trauma, and heartbreaking loss. It's a story of government-sponsored destruction and injustice. The decision to run I-94 through the heartbeat of the Black community in St. Paul was not an accident. It was an intentional policy decision. There was another route available through an underutilized industrial area to the north, but the decision was made to devastate St. Paul's Black middle class. In that experience, Rondo was not unique, as across the US, there are BIPOC neighborhoods that were plowed through for federally funded highways. Behind the 700 homes and 300 businesses destroyed, there were real people and real families. The trauma of that loss was further deepened by the fact that Black homeowners and business owners in Rondo were paid pennies on the dollar for their properties, wiping out their equity and wealth. Over $270 million is estimated to have been lost for property owners, generational wealth extinguished. To add insult to that injury, there was no comprehensive plan or services to help families or businesses relocate. There was no safety net extended to impacted families of Rondo, with full knowledge that racially discriminatory redlining practices and racial covenants cut off options for many within the Black community. This bill is long overdue and provides the opportunity to begin the process of reconciliation and healing. In addition to righting historical wrongs, it provides an opportunity to benefit public health by reducing air and noise pollution. It also provides a pathway to recovering taxable land. Today I have with me Mr. Anderson and Mr. Baker to share more on the bill.
Thank you very much, Chair Richardson. And Mr. Anderson, are you first up? Is that the order, or do you want is Mr. Baker first?
I think I'll go first.
Okay. Well, Mr. Anderson, welcome back to the committee. It was good to see you in February, and we welcome you back again. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Marvin Anderson, MarvinAnderson, and I chair the board of directors of Reconnect Rondo. The decision to wipe out Rondo was done 60 years ago. Fast forward to 5 years ago, when the mayor of the city of St. Paul and the commissioner of transportation came to a healing ceremony to formally apologize for the role their agencies played in that decision to route I-94 through our community. Today, thanks to their extraordinary partnership and that of other agencies, individuals, and interests, House File 2169 offers Rondo the extraordinary opportunity to reverse the course of this devastating history, repair the harm, and give the Rondo community a fighting chance to revitalize the neighborhood in a way that will give it purpose, give it a future, one that we can be proud of, along with the city of St. Paul and the state of Minnesota. Our efforts over the last 5 years have been deliberate, they have been focused, and we have had the help of teams, of leadership, and our leadership has been first class. I am pleased to introduce our executive director, Keith Baker, who has assembled this crack team of professionals to provide highlights of our purpose and what we will do when House File 2169 has been enacted and passed. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Welcome to the committee. Welcome back and good to see you again. Please state your name for the record.
Keith Baker, Executive Director for Reconnect Rondo. Thank you, Chair Hornstein, Representative Richardson, and Mr. Anderson for the opportunity. We certainly are anxious to put forward or to have support of House File HF2169. One of the things that I think becomes extraordinary as an opportunity is we know that there are examples all across the country that demonstrate that putting a cap or a land bridge over the freeway is doable. We have such in my hometown of Duluth and another one, the Lowry Tunnel. So we know that there are other structures and we know that this is a doable proposition. When we think about our feasibility study, it also suggests that over Rondo, I-94, it is possible as well. We're imagining a blank canvas, a canvas of 3,200 linear feet, 15 to 21 acres of new land. The big idea, obviously, is to build back what was lost for African Americans and to be forward thinking about how to build a bridge to better for Rondo and all residents of the city of St. Paul, the region, and the state. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to right the wrong and also to generate scalable opportunity for economic prosperity for Rondo residents. When we think about the opportunity and benefits, they are considerable. New housing, 576 units, job creation, up to 1,800 jobs, potential for 200 plus of being more permanent in nature. So that's the structure build, it's the build on top, as well as the opportunity for business incubation and business and permanent jobs as well. Nonprofit and institutional space, as well as retail and office space for market is 140,000 square feet of space. Overall community growth, 1,000 new residents, and revenue transferred to the city that can be generated between 3.8 and 4 million. This is an extraordinary opportunity. The appropriation, as outlined, would allow us the opportunity to establish a master planning team to really conduct activities such as analysis, increase our own capacity, as well as to recruit corporate leaders for strategic development opportunities. It's an opportunity for us to prepare for increased property tax, which we know certainly will have implications, anti-displacement mechanisms, and safeguards that prevent negative impacts from gentrification. Also to identify anchor tenants and to evaluate redevelopment plans and authority. To drill down just a little bit better, it's prerequisite activities, technical activities such as environmental review, design, and financial forecasting for the community land bridge itself, market and financial analysis, small area plan, and master planning. And keep in mind that we see the initiative here with Rondo from an economic development standpoint to be closely tied with the desires of the city of St. Paul as well, and how it might be also connected to the community of Frogtown, to what's going on up in Allianz Field, etc. We see the connective tissue of broader economic development and opportunity. When we take a look at what Mr. Anderson had mentioned in terms of the crack team that we've put together, let me start by saying I've spent 18 years working for the Department of Transportation. I have understanding of the jurisdictional responsibilities. Managing state funding is not a new thing to me. In my capacity with DOT, I was accountable for administering $30 million annually, a total in my career of 12 years, $300 million. So we certainly have the capability to get this done. Equally, we've put together a team, a board of directors that is tied to the community itself, a technical advisory team. We have legal counsel to help us through this process. We've tied ourselves to community stakeholders, as well as funders and the government entities themselves. So with that, I thank you so much, Chair Hornstein, Representative Richardson, and members for listening. We see this project as more than a bridge. The Rondo Land Bridge offers an opportunity to build an inclusive and equity-based local economy tied again to supportive activities from the city's downtown business area, as well as, again, Allianz Field and other economic engines such as Grand Avenue. Thank you for listening and your consideration to this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baker and Mr. Anderson. We appreciate the detailed chart in terms of the use of funds as well as your organizational structure. That's very important as we consider general fund allocations. Members, this is an opportunity if you have any questions of either Mr. Anderson, Mr. Baker, or Representative Richardson. Okay, let's see. I don't see any hands at this point. So Representative Richardson, oh, sorry.
Member hands up.
Excuse me?
There's a few member hands up now.
Oh, you know what? I think I need to get into a different window here.
See
For some reason, I'm not seeing them. So who do you have, Mr. Howe?
I see a Representative Koegel, Representative Elkins, and Representative Mason.
Okay, members, you know, I just wanted to preface this by saying we had a fairly extensive presentation also on this bill in January. If the members could really keep their questions brief, we have a long agenda. So I will entertain them, but really, if you need to, please keep these questions brief. It sounds like Representative Koegel was the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Baker, I was just kind of wondering what the plan is for making sure that gentrification doesn't happen. I know when I worked at Community Action, this was prior to Allianz Field going up, and we did some community listening sessions, and it seemed like there was really more of this is what's going to happen, you know. And so I want to make sure that, you know, when I saw that piece that the making sure that gentrification isn't taking place, I'm just kind of curious about how you plan that, how you see that going forward.
Mr. Baker.
Chair Hornstein, Representative Koegel, this really is one of the most important pieces without question. And while we don't have the specific plan, we know that there are policies that are currently in place and policies that must be introduced to ensure that the benefits that translate from the land bridge itself are used to offset any increased taxes that might be present. We know that through our health impact assessment, there are very specific recommendations that have been put forward to ensure that our attention is on both of those matters. And we will be continuing kind of public engagement activities, making sure we're rested foundationally on that. But more specifically, we're looking for ideas and solutions from the existing ecosystem, okay, that can offer those kinds of ideas and tools that will help us stay right on mark in that regard.
Thank you very much. Representative Mason is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question goes to a comment that Representative Richardson had made, where when the freeway was put through, hundreds of families lost their equity in their homes, etc. So you know, I understand the importance of this building, this bridge, but if no restitution has ever been made to those families, to me, it would seem fair that we go back and try to help the families that lost all the equity that they had when their properties were taken to them. And she said, like pennies on the dollar. Has that ever happened? And isn't that important?
Is that, is that to the author or any of the testifiers, just very quickly?
Well, certainly she's the one that made the comment about the pennies on the dollar. I don't know who would have the background on answering the question.
Representative Richardson, quickly on that question.
Sure, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Anderson or Mr. Baker may want to briefly add as well. The thought process with this project is also taking into account the descendants of Rondo as well, as we're thinking about that reconciliation and restoration. And I don't know if Mr. Baker or Mr. Anderson have something to briefly add.
Mr. Chair Hornstein and Representative Richardson, Representative Mason, the idea of restoring the lost equity to the descendants of Rondo would be beyond the purview of this particular bill itself. It should be studied on an independent basis, because we'd have to determine who they are, where they are, and how that would go about. So we'll focus on the land bridge that will provide mechanisms for those who are descendants of those who lost equity, not to restore that equity, but to give them an opportunity to be a part of the land bridge when it's created, housing and opportunities to open entrepreneurial businesses there. So it's not a direct return one-on-one to what was lost, but indirectly, we do believe we'll be able to provide some relief for those who can come forward and say, this happened to me. What can be done now to look at that? And we will open,
Thank you.
we will open that up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then our last question, Representative Elkins.
Yep, real quick. So a few years ago, I had an opportunity to visit Clyde Warren Park, which is a park built on a lid in the Arts District of downtown Dallas. And it has spurred literally hundreds of millions of dollars of redevelopment. So as part of the funding from this bill, will you be looking at the redevelopment opportunities and how some of the redevelopment funds could be used to A, help pay for the lid, and B, fund community objectives as well?
Thank you, Representative Elkins. It's an important point that there are models, as I believe Mr. Baker had pointed out, not even very far from here in Duluth, and of course the Dallas one. Thank you for raising that, Representative Elkins. Representative Richardson, do you have any final thoughts? Thank you very, very much, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Baker, for, again, another very substantive and very helpful testimony that you've provided the committee. Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to thank Mr. Anderson and Mr. Baker for their testimony today, and just will end with that this land bridge is an opportunity to not only physically reconnect, but could stand as a monument to restorative justice and to begin the healing of what was lost. And so we want our transportation system to promote health and equity and access for all, and this could be a start to that.
Thank you so much, Representative Richardson, and thank you for your hard work on this bill. And again, to Mr. Baker and Mr. Anderson, the time you've spent with our committee has been very, very deeply valued and helpful, and we look forward to our continued work with you. So again, to all of the people associated with Reconnect Rondo, thank you for your engagement and your participation. And members, as I mentioned before, this bill is, we are not acting or voting on this bill today, but it will be under consideration for inclusion in our omnibus bill that will be discussed the week after next. We're going on break next week. So thank you again to all.
Thank you for our time. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.